Complex on the screen, healthcare in between. Physics, art, math got us down this path. Historical tales come alive, where science and stories dive. Blended facts with heart, knowledge from the start. Need bridge blues we sing to the future memory. Health and science in the mix. Need bridge got the fix. Complex subjects made clear. Every episode cheer. Ramona leads the way, explaining day by day. In the world of digital streams, turning knowledge into dreams. Through the tales of old, new stories unfold.
MedBix Webcast is a new kind of healthcare media channel to break the silo mentality and foster interdisciplinary thinking. Our mission is to fill that gap and to create a curiosity through different lenses, tapping the passion that guided the historical figures in medicine and bringing present-day groundbreaking research to the front lines. We interview physicians and leaders in the industry about present-day healthcare challenges. Hey, welcome to the MedBix Webcast. This is Ramana Annam Raju. I'm the host. welcome again. You know, I am the sucker for physics people. Doesn't matter what they do. If they have physics qualifications, if they study physics, I am a sucker. I'm going to go and ask them everything I can. That's why, even though I don't agree with a lot of things with Elon Musk or all those people, but you know, he's a physics student and I love it. That's because even Jeff Bezos was a physics student. You know, physics has such a different view of systems. You know, physics gives you that different insight into the complex systems. You know, complex systems are our bread and butter for the physics people. You know, how the complex systems you handle, including artificial intelligence, is a complex system. So physics is always dealing with the complex subjects, complex things. But I have a very interesting polymath, a modern polymath. His name is Dr. Rashad Richey. He's from my hometown, Atlanta, Georgia. He's a physics professor. And then he has the qualifications, you know, goes on. And he has a wide variety of background. He's a journalist. He's an Indisputable with Rashad Richey. He's a 2 million people, 2.5 million people watch his program. He's a very well-known in the TYT, the Young Turks network. Is a popular broadcaster. Very well known. He interviewed a lot of powerful people in the industry. He is also, I don't know where he got the time, but he teaches a lot of schools in the Atlanta area. He goes to Paris, and then you know he's a very busy man. So I got him. I'm really privileged to have him on this podcast. So he came from a very humble background, and let me talk with him. He can tell you what is the things that require to be a polymath. Let me bring him to the table. His name is Dr. Rashad Richey. Welcome, Dr. Richey. Welcome to the MedBix Webcast.
Thank you, dear brother. Good to be here.
I'm honored to have you. Tell us a little bit background of yours, if you don't mind. You know, everybody knows you, but just to repeat that for our doctors and audiences.
You know, the first thing I want to do is say thank you to you, your audience, and everybody who gives a damn about science and health. The truth is we all should and we all do care about science and health to some level. As far as my background is concerned, I came from what you would call humble beginnings. I was a foster kid, in and out of foster homes, always had a natural curiosity for learning. I wanted to know, and I continue to ask why. You said something earlier. What does it take to be a polymath? It takes asking why every time a question is answered. There's another why behind the answer to the question. And that was me growing up. That's me in life. I enjoy learning. I have a natural and some would say extreme curiosity for learning. And so that was my background. But growing up in a foster environment where I'm shifting homes um, year by year, sometimes within months, not having roots, but always having opportunities to learn. What it did is it made me adapt to learning new things very quickly. So while many would look at being nomadic as a detriment, in a way, it taught me the skills necessary to learn how to synthesize and adapt to my environment quickly, to learn how to utilize the natural resources that were around me and to survive in those various conditions over time. So those were skills that I could utilize once I got my life together and became a college student myself and engaged in the academic pursuit of knowledge. But I already learned a significant trade while going back and forth in foster homes. I learned once again how to adapt and synthesize quickly, and that's what physics is about as well.
It is truly, truly an honor. That is very moving story. Let me bring you to, let me come next to you so then we can talk a little bit more closer. Um, that's just a minute. I'm okay. So this is, let me do this if you don't mind. Just I'm
Yes,
still
sir.
learning. I'm not expert like you. So
No, we all learning, brother.
uh, Dr. Richie, that is a very moving story, moving from a foster home to the, pinnacles of broadcasting. It's really, that is, you could have easily gone to the wrong path, right? There is a lot of wrong attractions in the life. What is a black man? And I married a black woman. I ask you, what is a black man? What motivated you to attract to science and the learning adoption? What inspired you inside?
If you look at a statistic, the number one and number two subject for most children will be science and math. Look at the stats. Number one and number two will be science and math. You add them up, you combine them, those subjects for the vast majority of Black students in particular are the most popular. That starts to change over time. And here's why. You have atmospheric conditioning, experiences, exposures, and environments. I always loved science. I always excelled at mathematics. But as my social atmosphere changed, so did my appetite for academics. One, it wasn't nurtured as it should have been nurtured. Number two, there are decisions that I had to make that were contrary to some of the decisions that I would have preferred to make. That is not just me. That's a microcosm. The macrocosm is the very same thing. There's a TED talk I did called The Motivational Value of Fear. The motivational value of fear. I did a TEDx about this, and I proclaim that fear means FEAR, false evidence appearing real. False evidence appearing real. And when you are engaged as a young person, all evidence seems real to you. So the perceived reality becomes your real reality. And if the perceived reality is that you don't have the luxury to study science, you have to get a job. You don't have the luxury to study science, you have to help pay the bills. When that becomes the reality that you live and coexist in, there are decisions that are made. It doesn't mean you have somehow left the ability or capacity to do science or to engage in high-level mathematics. It's that you had to put it on the side, and some people never come and pick it back up. Well, thankfully, dear brother, I was given the opportunity to go back to the table and pick up science again. And that's how my journey started. When I first went to college, I actually went to college to learn social, religious, and philosophical dynamics. And not knowing that philosophy will lead me straight into physics, because as with philosophy, it is the study and the understanding of life and attempting to understand life. So is physics, especially at the quantum level. It is the study and attempt to understand the processes that make life what it is.
That I'm from India originally. That so that one thing I learned from India is one thing India and China did is education for free. I
Right.
almost finished my bachelor's degree with $18 or so, less than $18, entire degree. Think about the power of the education, investment on the education. That, see, it's not an enterprise. It should be available for all people. If you want to make the America number one again, be slipping right now. But to education has to be free, and give them all educated for free education is the powerful weapon that you can give it to the people. I'm a strong advocate for, my son went to school, he has
Mhm.
$150,000 debt. How he's going to be happy, with a master's degree and a degree, that it is a really burdensome for people. So they're going through this kind of things, and education must be is a powerful weapon for any country to advance into the future. And you are the
Yeah.
proof of that, and you really proving that. Let me ask you a question. Just where did you got into your inspiration for broadcasting? You want to talk about that's a science is a different one. They're all introverts. They
Yeah.
don't talk with anybody else. They go and then they have glasses and they hit the books. Where did you
So
get the broadcasting idea for you?
so I go back to that. Let me say something to the point you just made about education. I say often, and I believe it, education is the great equalizer. Education is the great equalizer. Education in America has become an enterprise. It has become a business. It is not about academics, typically. It is not about simply learning, but schooling, and that's quite different. And if you look at my portfolio, you will see that I have a lot of education, but my education comes from America. My education comes from other countries. And I learned that the educational system in other nations is more about the actual academic journey, more so than about the money that an institution will make. And that's why most countries simply allow the government to accredit rather than a private agency. In America, private agencies accredit, and the government recognizes that private agency. And in order for a school to be accredited, they have to pay a bunch of money to that entity, and then the institution is thus accredited. My doctoral studies at Clark Atlanta University was about federal higher education reform. And in my doctoral dissertation, I write how the cost of higher education in America is too damn high. And if we are educated in a globalized sense, if education becomes more internationally appreciated, then it would force the educational systems in America to come down on their cost for education, because some of the most elite colleges in a foreign nation will cost pennies to go to compared to a moderate college in the United States of America. And that is a sad reality, that basically the education in America is based upon how much money you can spend. Now, we'll get to the broadcasting. I wasn't a natural broadcaster at all, and that's probably why I've been successful at it. I started broadcasting, man, because there was a guy who owed me money. This is a true story. He owed me money because there was a campaign, a political campaign that I was running. And he owed me money from this campaign, and he did not have the money to pay me back. He said, "Hey, I part own a radio station. And if you can fill in on this radio station, I will pay you $100 every time you fill in." And I looked at this man, I said, "You have lost your mind if you think that I'm going to work for my own money back." So I gave my dad a call. My dad at the time, beautiful soul. I had just put him in rehab. He was doing really good with his life. And my dad said, "Son, I really think you should do this. I think it may be something for you." And I remember telling my dad, you must have lost your mind too, if you think that I'm going to work for money that I'm already owed. But I do remember something else, another thought that came to me, and it said, this is the first time your dad has asked you to do anything as a sober person. This is the first time in his sobriety that he made a request. And I picked up the phone, called him back. I said, "Dad, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to do it for you." He was really excited. He caught a bus, train, and plane to that studio that day. He had to get a pass out of the rehab to do so. They gave him a waiver for the day. And my first day broadcasting, I was horrible. I did so bad that the engineer had to finish the show with me. I only had to do an hour. I could barely do 30 minutes. I wasn't a broadcaster. And I remember my dad did what any good dad would do. He lied. He said, son, that was an amazing show. All right. But as with anything else, it is with this. Practice makes perfect.
Yes.
And I continued to do that 1 hour program, and I got better and better and better. And within about 6 months, I was called to do a larger program on a station called WAOK on the weekends, and the rest is history. But I stayed with it. Now, I remember, how did I get there? How did this happen? I listened to my dad, whom I did not have to. I'm an adult. He didn't tell me to do it. He requested that I do it. And I helped somebody that could not afford my help. A man owed me money, but I knew he couldn't afford me in the beginning. So my broadcasting career can be attributed to me listening to my father and me helping someone who could not afford my help.
So, Dr. Richey, this is the, investment in learning is a very important, characteristic of, that's very important in India. We were taught that way. You invest your learning time, you invest in your time in learning.
Yeah.
But nowadays, the present generation, even in India, have got a problem. They think they're entitled to all these things, and they don't have to work. They work and they get money, and they don't want to learn anything. This is a big problem now. I can see the people that I work with and all those people. This is a kind of a generation. We need to change that investment in learning. Yes, you are the best example of that, actually. Investment in learning, what that is. So I think people like you should inspire all the other black men or other minorities that investment in learning is a very great quality that we need to have. Do you agree?
I agree. I may see it from a different perspective than you see it. So allow me to present mine. When we say this generation is lost, and that's a lot of the contextualization from people who may call my radio show. There's, oh, this generation is lost. If this generation is lost, I want you to think about this. It's like saying my keys are lost. My remote is lost.
Absolutely.
Your keys didn't lose themselves. That remote did not lose itself. If this generation is lost, that means that we lost them.
Yeah, absolutely.
We lost them, right? So that's number one. The accountability comes back to us. And as inspiration is concerned, remember what's happening. We are fighting against a social and political complex that would prioritize variations of politics and variations of popular normalities at the moment in exchange for what we know to be good policy and education. We should all agree that having affordable higher education is something that's good for individuals going into institutions of higher learning. We should all agree that everyone doesn't have to get a 4-year degree in order to be successful, that technical training is still a good option for individuals who would prefer to have a skill. So why is it that the funding apparatus continues to be dried up year after year when we all agree that these mechanisms give you a better opportunity at higher education? And as it relates to those who may not appreciate education as much as they should, everyone comes into their own at different phases. But remember, we are all a combination of 3 E's: experiences, exposures, and environment.
Yeah.
That makes us who we are. So when we look at a whole generation and say this generation is acting a little bit differently than our generation, well, you have to now look at what experiences, exposures, and environments that they have had that you did not. Because some of our young people, they are victims of overexposure. I didn't have to have my parents explain to me individuals unarmed being killed by the police when I was 9 years old, but I had to have that conversation with my daughter. So this is a very different type of complex that's happening in the United States of America, and frankly beyond. Overexposure is playing into that. And then the way we educate, dear brother, even in physics, we typically will educate individuals to remember or to commit to memory. Well, the reality is we want individuals to commit to critical thinking. Critical thinking is how you solve problems, but memorization is how we teach students. So we rather teach you to pass a test rather than teach you how to create one. And that becomes one of the dilemmas in higher education now. We teach the same thing, creating the same manufacturing, and thus we produce the same student.
Well said. Agree no more. That is that is the key to the education. That's what you know is a beautifully well said. But I wanted to ask you one more thing. That is why in the I was married to a black woman and I used to go to her church, and then a lot of times I wanted the young people I used to meet, and I wanted them to motivate towards people like you rather than sports people, entertainers. They are not may not be the best examples of all these things, even though I know some of them are, and I'm not saying they're any bad, but I think that is the only option, only way out of this system, that it should be changed in the culturally. Do you agree, or what do you think of that? What is your opinion on that?
You know, when we get upset at a young person because they are fascinated by sports star, understand that fascination comes by way of promotion and advertisement. I can't get upset at them no more than I can get upset at things that are promoted and advertised to me, because that system is a self-fulfilling system. Once again, we're back to experiences, exposures, and environments, right? And so if you surround a young person with some of these other choices, for example, my daughter is in college and she's a sports medicine major, but she's also been an athlete her whole high school career. And she's still an athlete in college right now. But sports medicine was congruent to her exposures. We exposed her to sports medicine and we exposed her to these other nuances of the industry. I think we're willing to tell a child no before we understand why they gave us a yes. And I would prefer to work with the yes that they have given. Okay, they like a sports person. They like an entertainer. That's great. They like entertainment. Let's talk about them being an entertainment attorney as well. Let's talk about the variations of enterprises and job opportunities, career opportunities that are within that particular industry, rather than shutting down what's promoted and advertised to them. Utilize that current, utilize that energy in order to make something beautiful, because you definitely can. And as it relates to Black people in particular, you have to look at African-American females are the fastest growing higher education demographic in the United States of America. And they are number one on new business owners in the United States of America because of these advanced level degrees and the knowledge that comes with understanding deeper protocols in business and entrepreneurship. And so it's definitely catching, and it's definitely connecting to certain demographics in the community. But we do have to meet them where they are, dear brother. I think sometimes we want to simply make a hard shift to the left or to the right. And there is no industry. You got to understand, young people have their own language, their own culture, their own industries. There is no culture or industry that you can come in and just tell what it should do without that culture or industry pushing back. Yeah. And one of the greatest lessons I learned in an executive leadership class many years ago is that the first thing you have to do, no matter what that culture may be, is learn the culture that you're trying to change.
Let us talk about the advertisement you were talking about. So the food is nutrition. I went to a lot of small towns. I used to place doctors in a small way, small rural Alabama, rural Georgia. It is really, that's only food available is just a fast food restaurant. So there is not a much available there, where that is a big challenge to the community. They are expecting them to be healthy, and they have so many other things coming up, complications, diabetes and other things. But if we don't have the resources available for them, how can they make their bodies healthy?
Well, you're back to, and I don't want to get too deep into politics, but that's a policy dynamic. When you have lack of opportunity and lack of choices in front of you, these are issues that have been decided by way of a policy maker. Policymakers create those realities for us. And so there's a conversation that must be had. But at the same time, there's a reality that must be respected and also dealt with properly. Because if we have a lack of anything, it's guaranteed to be connected to a policy. I'll give you another example. Pell Grant. Pell Grant is a federal program that allows a lot of college students who come from a household median income under a certain threshold to go to college. All right, gives them money for school. Well, the Pell Grant has been manipulated for years, where we simply can't wrap our legislative minds around how the Pell Grant should be allocated. At one time, Pell Grant was allowed for those who were in prison. You know what happened? A high percentage, well over 20% of individuals who received higher education in prison, guess what they did not do? They had zero recidivism. Their number's nowhere near that today. Why? Because education is a great equalizer. As I said, if you educate a man or woman who's incarcerated, they have better opportunities in the workplace. They don't go back to doing criminality. But we took the Pell Grant away. We literally eliminated a program that was actually successful, and nobody blinked an eye. Why? Because they were incarcerated. But it proved the model. It proved that if you educate a man, if you educate a woman, if you give them an opportunity to learn a skill, to learn a trade, to get higher educated, if you do so, you have less recidivism. Well, why would they want to take away less recidivism? Because if you clear out the prisons, dear brother, you clear out the money makers who need the prisons to run. And we're back once again to a policymaker at the beginning and end of that scenario.
But the righteousness, right way of doing things, education is the key. Then keep going. That is, we advance. It doesn't matter what the policy is. Eventually, you're a physics, you learn physics. Physics says that always the system goes to the equilibrium. It goes to the righteous path. Or that's a system itself pushing that direction. Nature itself has the power to push that to do right things. We saw that, and it is going to happen. You don't need to worry. I mean, I understand that your policy concerns people like you, or great voice for voiceless people you are. So I think that kind of things helps education-wise. It helps. I wanted to ask you just a little bit of your talking about education. You have shifted completely into different 180 degrees into quantum physics and neuroscience. Tell us a little bit of background of yours before you leave. You have
Sure, absolutely. So
yeah.
for roughly 12 years, I studied physics, particle physics, energy physics, quantum mechanics through an MIT program called OpenCourseWare. And for those who are watching, OpenCourseWare is one of the greatest programs any institution has come up with. It's free, number one. It gives you the full college class. I mean, literally the professor, the final exams many times are allowed to also be connected to this curriculum, and you get to study at your own pace. Now, if you have questions, there are chat groups you can go in and you can post the questions. Also, if you're looking at an old class, you got to look at the year of the class or the date, because physics is one of those ever evolving sciences, and it evolves pretty quickly, more so, in my opinion, than some of the other sciences. But it gives the great opportunity to engage in mid to high level physics learning without having to pay the high level money. And I did that for roughly 12 years. While I was in law school, I had this phenomenal idea. I said, I think I would like to pursue a PhD in physics at some point in my future. And when I started to apply for programs, I'm just applying for programs while in law school because, I want to see exactly what it takes. It's different. I learned that many colleges, they require that you have your thesis already presented in your application of the PhD program. Now, at this time of my life, I've already completed doctoral studies at multiple universities, including Clark Atlanta University. I had never been required to present my thesis in my application. That was quite new. And so I developed a working thesis. I developed a thesis proposal. And in this, and when I say thesis, I mean thesis proposal. And in this proposal, you don't know exactly what they're looking for, right? And the phone calls I would get back, they would say, hey, listen, all right, great thesis proposal, but you got to have at least a master's in physics, which I did not. I had all of these basically executive education courses from MIT. I had the knowledge. Clearly, I had the skill set. Some of the professors or the liaisons would actually go back and forth with me on some of the concepts. No problem. Well, I realized, dear brother, if I wanted to actually pursue a PhD in physics, I would simply have to get a physics degree. And so I was able to enroll University of Renaissance. They have an agronomics program, and I got a master's in agronomical physics. And my thesis, ironically, my master's thesis that's peer reviewed and published from that degree program is similar to what you talk about. And it's how we merge sciences in an interdisciplinary fashion in order to answer more questions about existence, life, and even medicine or health. So that's the thesis. Anyone can find that at the International Journal of Science and Research. So that gave me, once I finished that program, that gave me the prerequisite to be accepted into the quantum physics research program at Paris Graduate School, where I'm roughly 3 or 4 months away from defending my dissertation there. And I'm currently enrolled in ICC University of Technology in a PhD in neurophysics program. And I've always typically been in more than one degree program at a time. So when someone looks at my profile and they say, well, how in the world you got all these degrees? I've always done at least 2 or 3 degree programs at the same time.
Education is your second food. I think, I want, it is a very interesting that did you, by learning physics, have you thought, how you applied to the general in life and in broadcasting? And I said, can you give me some insight into that power of that communication from the physics point of view?
Oh, yeah. Physics, if you actually embrace it, you realize it's the study of systems. It's the study of systems. And when you get really involved, you have more questions than answers, but the questions are no longer singular. Yeah. The questions are multidimensional. The questions are about how do systems fit within a multidimensional space? Because as we believe, we are in just this one dimension, let's call it 3D. We're in a 3-dimensional world. Some would call it, we're headed to 4th density, whatever you want to call it. This world, as we know it, is much more complex than what we see or what we interpret. And physics will lead you to the conclusion that everything works by way of these systems that are seemingly separate, but absolutely connected. And that is how physics has informed my broadcasting life. I delve into quantum medicine and quantum healing in my research as well, which is an emerging phenomenon about how we utilize these quantum elements, including vibration and resonance, in order to energize quantum systems that are non-biological inside of the human body. There was a time we did not believe that quantum mechanics could actually take place inside of a human body because of the warmth and the wetness of the human body. Well, that is incorrect. It absolutely takes place. We have everything from quantum mechanics to quantum coherence that takes place inside of the human body. And now there's research showing that even photosynthesis itself is a quantum property where the chlorophyll is not acting as a transport system as much as it is acting as a wave of coherence, meaning that the operation of photosynthesis is likely a quantum mechanical operation more so than a biological transport. And that's the reason why it is such an efficient process to convert sunlight or photonic energy into food for the plant. So all of this will inform you over time that life, yes, it is complex, but probably not as random as you once believed.
That is my mantra. I tell my children all the time, they're seemingly separate subjects. They look all different, politics and science, and then everything looks different, but they're all one and the same. If you look at the physics point of view, they're all system moving into one direction. That is a great perspective to have. It gives you very different outlook. I agree with you. That is one of the reasons I started this podcast is that systemic, that a polymath interdisciplinary field is only one. It's not an interdisciplinary means not several fields. There are only one field. We are venturing into different things. You well said, beautifully said about that. I don't want to take your time. I already gave more than what you can give. Thank you, Dr. Richey. I'm truly honored and privileged to have you.
I'm honored. Have me back, brother.
On my podcast, and I enjoyed it. Your true voice for the voiceless people. Keep up going. That is, you're the not only from a foster home all the way to your on TV, and then your father inspiration. You're giving a tribute to your father. I salute to you. That is
Thank
a
you.
really extraordinary achievement. Thank you for joining with us.
Thank you, brother. I look forward to coming back anytime.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Anytime. Thank you,
Thank you.
sir. Bye bye, guys. Welcome. Let me. Okay, I'm going to present a topic on, a little bit of a topic I'm going to talk about. Charles Drew. I'm going to talk about. I don't know whether you know about this gentleman that is a doctor, is a physician. Let me add this. Let me add this one. Add a source. Add a scene. Media. Yeah. Little bit. I'm going to talk about. You got time? Little bit. I want to talk very quickly about Dr. That's a Rashad Richey is a really, truly a gentleman, and is a true voice for people voiceless. We need people always, physics. Studying physics gives you, even for anything that it can solve the problem, it gives you confidence, it gives you solutions for a lot of things. I admire anybody who studied physics, who study. I'm a sucker for them. That's why I admire in that sense, Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. They studied physics. Do you know that? So you may not agree their policies sometimes, but they studied. That's one thing you have to respect. That. Let me explain to you this Charles Drew. I'm going to quickly talk about a little bit about Charles Drew. During the COVID, actually, during the COVID, we have a let me yeah, during the COVID, we have a convalescent plasma. That the COVID, they wanted to treat the COVID at the time before getting all these new drugs came out. Convalescent plasma is one of the treatment for that they offered during the process. The plasma idea came from, this is a really birth of a blood bank. Is actually, let me explain to you what the plasma is. Plasma is a composition of blood. 55% in the blood is 55% is plasma, and then platelets are less than 1%. Red blood cells are 45%. In the other ones are white blood cells are 1%, very small. This is the composition of the blood. Dr. Charles Drew is a father of the blood banks. I really have to admire. Um, he came from a very he came from a very poverty-stricken background, and he is from a normal, yeah, average. His father is a preacher, I think. That he came from a very humble background. He's not he's an African American. So he applied for several schools, and then eventually went to Montreal, where I went to school. I went to Montreal, right across McGill. I went to Concordia University. He went to do. I don't know, but he applied in the hospital in in Harvard. He applied for New York, but the admission requirements are cumbersome. Then he moved to Canada, where that he was exposed to a different world in Canada. Canada, there's a less racism there. They don't talk about morning to evening about the black and white, all those things. So he was a McGill. He shined. He was an excellent athlete. He was a runner, track. He was doing a track. He's very good. So McGill, he shined. He really did shine. He was working under a British professor. He worked on the general. Then he did a residency in Montreal, in the General Hospital, Montreal General Hospital. I lived in Montreal. I went to school in right across McGill. It's called Concordia University. I went to school there. So he did a residency in a house surgeon. He was doing in Montreal. Then he came back to Freedom Hospital. He joined in that Freedom Hospital. Actually, when he was in Montreal, what he worked under a special gentleman from Britain. He was his supervisor. He's a direct supervisor. So that he was working under the supervisor. He was doing a lot of these blood related research. So that I am that what he did was blood for Britain. The during the World War II, the during the World War II, he became Freedom Hospital, is a Harlem hospital basically. That is in Harlem, Bronx. So he came back and he got a MD from Canada, moved back, and then New York also he studied. He got the licensed MD in the United States, and then started practicing in the Harvard Medical School. Then he went to Harlem. He was practicing in Harlem. Then during this process, the World War II broke out, and then a lot of British soldiers were getting killed. They need a blood supply. So Blood for Britain supply is a big campaign. They started it. They recruited because the Royal Society of Surgeons, the main head, was a previous supervisor in Montreal. So they have that connection. So they gave him the Charles Drew became the head of this World War II blood for Britain campaign. So he is the first one who started the blood banks in the there's something wrong. Okay, I think sorry about that. So it is the plasma. What he did was, at that time they were supplying the blood. Blood storage is a big problem. Storing the blood is usually spoils in hours, maybe not more than a day. It is the transporting the blood is a big challenge. So what he came up with is a industrialized kind of way. He came up with the separating plasma, which is all the nutrients carrier. Plasma is a carrier of nutrients, all those things it does. It is a proteins, it carries, so plasma is separated from the blood cells. He separated it, and he separated the plasma from the blood cells, and then he was supplied. He met the requirement of the Britain and England during the war, and he was started the first American Red Cross. Actually, he started that is a letter from his Royal Society of Surgeons doing his work, his work during the process. But United States Army was joined. In the United States Army, they asked him to start a blood bank, and so he's the first mobile blood bank started in the United States. Can you believe this? He is the doctor who started the blood bank, but he cannot donate his own blood because as a African American, the blacks cannot donate the blood to them. He said that it doesn't make any sense. Their blood is same. His human blood is just anatomically. So he protested on the protest, and after that he started the blood bank. Then he was with the protest. He moved to the Howard Hospital in Freedom in Washington D.C. He became a professor there, teaching a lot of people there. So he's an icon in that sense. Same blood in your veins. That is a slogan. He does that. So is a Dr. Charles Drew. I went to actually Charles Drew Medical School. I went to see. I met all their friends, my friends up there. Dr. Richard Allen Williams is a good friend of mine, and also the president of the Dr. Carly is from president of the Charles Drew Medical School. I met him a couple of times, and then so he's a very gentleman. The two gentlemen they are, and then they have a $600 million fund recently awarded by Bloomberg. They gave us $600 million to the Charles Drew Medical School. So it is really is a great honor on his name. It is really a tribute to a man. Then there's a naval ship. There's a cargo ship named after him, Charles Drew. So Charles Drew was a father of the blood banks. He was a really took the blood banks into the next level. That is my picture with the Dr. Richard Allen Williams in Charles Drew Medical School that I went to. So thank you for watching. Just I want to give a brief description. So I was not well prepared for this because I was thinking that I'm going to talk with Dr. Rashad Richey for a whole hour. But in fact, I wanted to thanks Dr. We are when you have the power, one thing you can do with the power is to be compassionate to other people. That is a powerful thing. It's not that showing the power to destroy people. the power to help other people. That is a power. The real power is well defined in that sense, is to when you are helping other people with your power. That is the true power of, that's a divine power in my view. Thank you for listening, and let us tomorrow I will have a great guest, and I have a very interesting topic about the entirely different world, quantum ghost imaging. It's really very, very strange field. I'm going to introduce you tomorrow. So come back, and tomorrow we'll have a great fun. And my good friend Susan Davis is going to join with us tomorrow. And then she's really fantastic addition to the MedBreaks. Thank you for joining all of us. Good night, all of you. And let me thank you all. Good night.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBreaks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.